Good evening, world, and thanks for coming to check out haunting season. Now, I've got a bit of a cold and I forgot my hat, so bear with me if this one's a little weird. The story I'm about to tell is a nightmare that I had the other night. It isn't necessarily a sequel to anything, but if you really obsess over linear storytelling and you really like to know all of the details before getting into something because you're afraid you might miss some tiny detail that might have been significant later, you don't really like going backwards, like me, you might want to click here and see the original video. Oh wait. Great, and for the rest of you, here's my story. So the night leading up to this nightmare was typical. I ate some food. It wasn't anything in particular. It wasn't anything particularly spicy. I know that can sometimes have to do with nightmares. And I got in bed and I watched a couple episodes of King of the Hill with my wife and I fell asleep. Completely normal. When I became conscious in the dream world, I was in a loft bed, 6 feet off the ground, and had my arms and legs tied to either corner. So I was completely sprawled out, tied with, I wanna say, like, it was very similar to, you see in hospitals when people need to be restrained, like the leather straps, tied to this bed, completely fully extended. And I'm laying there and I'm looking around and I realize that I'm chained up, so I'm very curious about what's going on, and I sort of lean forward and I see at the foot of the bed is standing a minister and a woman. The feeling that came from the woman felt sort of like my wife. You know how you get that feeling where people don't look the same in a dream, but they feel the same? You get that sense of, yes, I know who you're supposed to be. And like in the dream, it feels 100%, you're like, that's my wife. But in reality, when you wake up, you realize, oh, they didn't look the same. And my theory on that, I know dreams are a way of your brain deleting memories that you don't necessarily need. The weird looking lady that was 10 rows down at the cash register, things like that get used in dreams and are slowly deleted throughout the night. So my theory is that when you feel a sense of people in your dream, it's giving familiarity to the people so that you can believe in the dream and you can continue to dream, but it gives you a face that you don't necessarily need to remember. And this woman's face I do not remember, but the familiarity was of my wife. So I'm chained up to this bed and I'm looking down at the two of them and they're staring at me. Almost American Gothic sort of staring at me. And I remember asking them kindly, please let me down. What's happening? What's going on? And the two of them turned into each other and they started to speak softly and I couldn't hear what they were saying. And I'm looking at the straps on my wrist and up at the ceiling, and the ceiling is pretty close, you know, high enough that you could sit up, but that's about it. So I'm starting to get this claustrophobic feeling of like, I'm strapped, I can't move, and I have this ceiling that's like, almost feels like a weight, just waiting to drop on me. And I look down at the two of them and she's climbing up the loft bed. She's coming up slowly to climb onto the bed with me. And so I'm thinking, yes, finally, okay, I'm gonna get let free, we can explain what happened, and we'll all be on our merry way. The wife looks at me, I'll call her the wife, because she wasn't my wife. In the dream, she was my wife. And I'm speaking to her and I'm saying, hey, what's going on? You know, let me down. And the look in her eyes is as if I'm speaking some foreign language. And she's staring at me and I'm trying to communicate, nothing's getting through. And she leans up closely to my ear, leaning in very carefully as if I might bite, and just says, Granala, fu, dasala, nai. Which obviously makes no sense to me. So for some reason, I'm speaking something she doesn't understand, she's speaking something I don't understand, but she's whispering it into my ear again and again and again and again and again and again, and she just keeps repeating and repeating, and I'm starting to feel really scared and really uncomfortable, as if it wasn't bad enough. I start feeling this shakiness come over me, and I'm looking around the room and things are starting to have this weird glow to them, where just the edges of everything have this white and yellow glow coming out of it. And slowly my eyes start to roll into the back of my head. And as they roll into the back of my head, I'm brought into a whole different world. I want to call it my soul cave, because it was like looking inside of me, but it was just this long, dark, empty cavern. But at the very, very end of it, there was just a spark of light. And as she keeps whispering in my ear, this light becomes a little bit more like a mist. And the mist kind of glowing from the inside of this whitish yellow, and it's caterpilling up from the deepest caverns of my soul cave, coming up towards me. And I'm constricted on the inside as well, but in a different way. I feel like my body, the closer this thing gets, the more my body seems to contort, and it feels as if my limbs are slowly being tied into these intricate knots, and I'm getting pains in my joints. And as it's getting closer and closer and closer, I realize that I have to make it stop. I have to make it stop, and it's gotta be connected to the wife who's whispering in my ear. So my eyes come back out from inside, and I look at her, and I'm begging her, please stop. You're bringing out something inside of me, something I don't want, something that feels bad. Please, you have to stop. And she just continues, Grisella fu, Desella nai, Grisella fu, Desella nai. Please, please, I'll do anything. You have to make it stop. You have to make it stop. And I can feel it creeping up closer and closer and closer. And I start feeling this large, heavy hand grasping around my neck and starting to strangle me. And at the time that starts happening, I start feeling like a kindled fire is starting in each one of my eyes. Like there's this fire coming from inside of me. And I start to smile. And I can feel the thing taking over. And the wife slowly backs away, looking at me in the eyes, completely frozen. She stopped speaking, stopped everything, sitting up, staring at me in the eyes. And she slowly backs away and climbs down the loft bed to go stand with the minister. So inside I've got this fire raging, I've got this hand across my throat, I've got fire in my eyes, and I can feel this pulse inside my entire body. And I can feel my skin start to stretch to make room for this great evil. And I can feel the blood thickening in my veins. And all of a sudden, this big pulse of power goes through me, and I'm fully engulfed. And I'm yelling, and none of it makes any sense. And she jumps back behind the priest, as anyone would in that situation. And I just continuously scream at them, the chains shaking, the bed rumbling. And I can feel the pulsating of the walls, the evil inside of me growing and growing. And my head turns and I look at the white wall next to me, and in fire and blood is starting a line down and a curve and another curve. And as it slowly continues to write, a B, E, E, I can feel this strong sense coming from inside of me. You must finish the word. You must finish the word. And I know what the word is, and the word is Beelzebub. And as I continue to write with the fire in my eyes on the wall, in blood and in fire and smoldering ash, I'm writing the B, the E, the L, the Z. I can feel the minister getting closer, and it's as if he's climbing through this dark, thick soup of power. And he finally gets up to me as I'm getting halfway through the word. He shoves a syringe into my neck, injects the liquid, and I black out. That was the first part of the dream. And you can hear the second and the third in the next 2 weeks. Thanks so much for everyone to writing into Facebook. I've loved reading all of your stories. I'm sorry I couldn't get to everyone as quickly as I had hoped, but just the pouring in of stories has been so amazing, and I really want to take the time to read each and every one of them because I think they're amazing, and I think it's so nice to have a community of people who have experienced what I've experienced. And I think that's really what we're building here, a community where people can communicate. I urge you all to use the Facebook page as a way of communicating with each other because there are so many of you that are incredible and absolutely amazing. Thank you so much. I'll see you next week.